All right, guys, what's going on? So, I've been getting a lot of requests to do this video, which is going to be basically a screening of yours truly. And it kills me because I don't really like watching my old self and the way that I threw. Just to give you an example, this video, check it out. Okay, so hopefully most of you know my story by now. When I was released by Pittsburgh, I was basically throwing like 85, and not just throwing 85, but throwing 85 and not really knowing where it was going. So the whole dynamic was that when I was with Pittsburgh, again, this is no disrespect or throwing shade at an organization, but the whole goal was to get as much sink movement on my fastball as possible. And so what my body and arm basically just did to organize to complete the task was to just gradually get lower and lower and longer with the path. And obviously there was multiple plays, multiple things, in play is what I meant to say. It's not just the arm path, not just the hand path. Obviously you'll see in the screening that there's things within the lower body that clean up as well. But since we're focusing on the hand path and arm action, I just want to break this down. We're going to show this video, and then we're going to have another video of the same bullpen on the side. This is 2014, right after I got released, going into 2015. And as I mentioned, for most of you that know my story and know my journey, after working towards arm action efficiency, got my velocity back up to basically sitting 95, touching 99. And it's been a cool ride, man. But we're going to take a look, and I'll just break it down in terms of like what I'm looking at when with this arm action. So for me, it's about consistency in the slot, consistency and timing in the slot. Now, if we have multiple checkpoints to get to, then we're going to make it harder on ourselves to repeat, right? Now, I completely understand that we're not going to be able to repeat every single rep, nor are we ever going to be able to repeat 100% anytime because there's too many moving parts through space. But we can set ourselves up for success, right, by simplifying the whole entire action. So first thing you're going to see as I separate my hands, and I know, again, it's 2014, so the video quality is not that great, but as soon as I separate my hands, you're going to see that both of them, we basically, extend, right? So we have full elbow extension on both arms. So right from this point, like, I know this isn't a breakdown on my drive leg or my lower half mechanics, but we can already see that, look at where the heel is, right? Like that's premature heel disconnection. But just sticking to the hand path, now we're going to start seeing that the hand, my throwing hand, is going to actually swing behind my drive leg, my drive foot. Again, I don't even know if it's something that's bad or good, but it's something that's going to now make it harder for me to get into that slot and leverage my arm. And I'll show you what I mean by that here in a little bit. But going with tempo, right? So we see that this hand path, this action that my arm is on is very essentially slow, right? It's not quick, it's not aggressive, it's slow. And my personal belief is that the tempo is just going to match the lead foot, right? So the hand tempo has to match the lead foot tempo, or the lead foot tempo has to match the hand tempo, because again, you're fighting organization, right? It's the same thing when we walk, opposite pendulum, right? So it's very similar to that. So now that since my hand path is going to be very complex and essentially elongated, that's going to mean that my body now has to organize in a way that decreases the tempo of that lead foot. So that's what you're going to see with me here, is that now my drive phase, the actual acceleration of my body in the drive phase, is very less, right? So now what we see here is as I come down to front foot strike, well, we see a lot of things, but for me, I'm not able to fully leverage my arm, because when I come down to that front foot strike, I am outside, right? Like when I say outside 90 degrees, I'm not able to go from extension, flexion into extension all at a rapid tempo, rapid acceleration. So now I have to go rotate without getting my full hand inside that 90 degrees, which we know cushions the elbow and increases power output, right? So it's my whole analogy. This looks like an overlay, doesn't it? It's my analogy with like jumping in a 360 standing still, right? What does our hands and arms do to increase our power output? It goes from out to in tuck into completion, right? So that's kind of the way that I look at it, is like if you were going to do something that trying to throw your furthest, and I think I have a few videos on this as well. If you're going to throw your furthest, your body naturally organizes to get into as much elbow flexion as possible and then get into that extension. So you're leveraging that hand. And in this view, it's a really good indication of me just not quite maximizing that, right? So not only do we have a decrease in tempo, which is going to decrease our velocity, but we also have kind of a sequencing issue that's going to not allow me to fully maximize that leverage. So now we look at it from the side, another pretty good angle. Then this angle I'll compare with my other video. Okay, so I'll play it in fast motion so you can get an idea. Now again, that's not 100% throw, like I get it, but it's the only video I had. So right off the bat, you can see what I'm talking about with the tempo, right? So the tempo of the foot is going to match that tempo of the hand, so both of them are going pretty slow. And as you can see, when I come down to that anchor point, I'm extremely outside that what I would want to be in. Now, I know it sucks because I don't have something at full speed, but just I'm aware that if it was at full speed, it'd be a little bit different as far as the actual tempo, and then the tempo would probably put me in a little bit better sequence. But you can pretty much see just how how I'm not sequencing and not leveraging properly. So there's a huge disconnection, right? So that is, gosh, it's hard to look at, guys. Now we're going to take a look at a bullpen that I threw fairly recent, and we're going to talk about basically the exact opposite of these things. Okay, so we'll play this in fast motion. Oh, it's in slow-mo. Well, another thing with being in 2020 is now we have high-speed cameras and stuff. All right, so now we're going to see a combination of a lot of different things for the better that are happening. Okay, so we're going to see obviously more forward momentum, which is going to naturally increase the tempo of things. But now with my hand path, this is another conversation that I have that gets a little bit over complex. But if the body knows that the hands are staying what I call connected to the body, which is just basically like relatively in the path or the, what am I trying to say? Connected to the body, so the hands aren't getting too outside of the body, which then would make the brain kind of monitor that threat as in, oh crap, we're not going to be on time, so maybe go slower into our anchor point. Hopefully that made sense. Since my hands are connected, then the body doesn't have to necessarily worry about the tempo. So right off hand separation, we're going to see that I get glove arm extension, but I remain flexed in the elbow, right? So I have a little bit of elbow flexion, probably a little bit outside 90 degrees. And now we're able to actually leverage better with that hand and that drive leg knee and the hip, right? So all of these things are going to start going. The hand or the arm's going to go into retraction. We're going to go into internal rotation. So now we're just having that timing of the sequence, right? The kinetic energy coming up, that's being optimized, right? So now we're able to take more kinetic energy. We're able to take more energy from the ground up to the hand. And now you're going to see as I come into that anchor point that I'm in a lot better position with that arm, about inside 90, right, with both arms. And now we're going to leverage that arm through, right? So there's a whole lot of things that I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that I'm doing a little bit better job of, obviously from the last video. But a huge thing that sticks out to me, man, is like the hand doesn't dip behind the drive foot. Okay, so I'm able to be connected with my body the whole entire drive phase, and then I just flip up and just notice, like, as I separate, I go right into this like retraction. So I'm able to increase that tension here, which doesn't necessarily force counter rotation, but it does keep the trunk from then rotating early, which is not what we want, right? So that retraction, going in right into the retraction and then hand raise, kind of puts me in a really, really good position with my trunk where I'm not prematurely rotating that. Whereas in the other video we saw, that the tempo was slower, the acceleration was slower, the hand was outside, and the trunk was going earlier than it should be to increase that stretch, right? So a lot of things to take in there. I'm obviously biased. I say it every single time I talk about this stuff, but knowing what it's helped me with, just kind of keeping the simplicity, keeping connection, because I think at the end of the day, man, it comes down to the consistency of timing. And you look at every high power output pitcher, not one of them anchors down and they're disconnected, right? Like, I know Ron Wolforth over at Texas Baseball Ranch, like, that's his big thing. And, I watch a lot of his stuff, so, credit to that. But his big thing is connection. That's why we have, like, the tools of connection ball. And it's, again, it's my argument with, like, look at how the body organizes when the object in the hand is heavier. Okay, so if the object in the hand is heavier, again, that brain constantly monitoring threats, it says, hey, we can't be disconnected with this heavy object or else we'll freaking blow our elbow out. So it naturally optimizes that path, keeps connectivity, and then leverages the hand. It's the same thing that I'll talk about with weighted balls and why I think they're a great tool to optimize, your arm action. But that's just, just a little taste. Hopefully you've been able to check out my ebook on hand path simplicity, arm action efficiency. This is obviously going to be included in that, but the whole ebook is my understanding, my teaching, my screening, like more visuals and bunch of drill progressions to better obtain that, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't checked that out yet, be sure to do so on my website, therobbyrowshow.com. See an option for ebooks. So, all right, that was hard for me to watch, but hopefully you got something from it. Love you guys. God bless.